My name is Elizabeth Carter. I'm 58 years old and I live in Dallas, Texas, here in the United States. Before I dive into this story, I want to welcome you. Please make sure you subscribe, like this story, and click the notification button so you don't miss more shocking stories like this. And let me know in the comments, what part of the country are you watching from? I'd really love to hear. Now let me take you to the most unforgettable, heart-stopping moment of my life. It was at my son's wedding. A day that was supposed to be filled with joy, laughter, and new beginnings. The guests had gathered, the music had quieted, and the best man had just finished his toast. That was when I overheard her, the bride, lean close to her wealthy mother-in-law and whisper with a smirk on her face, "She's just a pathetic failure, nothing like you." She was talking about me. The words cut through me like a blade. My chest tightened, my ears burned, and my hands shook as I held my glass. I wanted to scream, but instead I smiled faintly as though I hadn't heard. But inside something broke. And something else awakened. When my turn came to give the toast, I stood slowly, my knees wobbling under my gown. I held the microphone, looked around the glittering hall, then reached into my bag and pulled out a small device. My son's bride smiled sweetly at me, pretending innocence, not knowing what was coming. I pressed play. Suddenly, my late husband's voice, my son's father, filled the room. He had recorded a message before he died. A message meant to be played only on a day as important as this. His words carried love, wisdom, and a final blessing. But in that same recording, he also left a truth that the bride could never have expected. The room fell completely silent. Forks froze midair. Glasses hovered in hands. All eyes darted between me, my son, and his new wife. And then, cliffhanger, pause here. I will not reveal what the recording said yet, because we must build the suspense and go back to the beginning of the story. To understand how we reached that shocking moment, you need to know how it all began. It started months before the wedding, when my son Daniel brought home the woman he said he wanted to marry. Her name was Victoria. Tall, beautiful, with striking green eyes that seemed to look right through you. She was the kind of woman who commanded attention the moment she stepped into a room. And yet, even from the first day I met her, something about her unsettled me. At dinner that evening, she barely looked at me. Her laugh was too sharp, her compliments to Daniel too rehearsed, like lines from a play. I told myself I was imagining it, that perhaps I was being too protective, too judgmental as a mother. After all, what mother ever feels anyone is truly good enough for her son? But little things began to happen. At first, they seemed small. Comments slipped under the breath. Glances of annoyance when she thought no one was watching. She made jokes about the way I dressed, the way I cooked, even the way I spoke. Daniel never seemed to notice. He was blinded by love, or maybe by her beauty. One night, after they got engaged, I overheard her on the phone. She was laughing with a friend, saying, "Oh, don't worry about his mother. She's harmless. She's old and tired. A nobody." That night, I cried myself to sleep. But still I told no one. The months leading to the wedding were a storm. Victoria's family had money, lots of it. They wanted a grand wedding, the kind that made headlines in magazines. Every decision, venue, flowers, food, even the music, was controlled by them. I felt like a guest at my own son's wedding. My opinions were brushed aside. "It's not about you," Victoria would remind me with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Still, I stayed quiet. I told myself it was Daniel's happiness that mattered most. I swallowed my pride, wiped my tears, and tried to smile for his sake. But then came the rehearsal dinner, the night before the wedding. That was when the storm truly broke. We were seated at the long table, laughter echoing, wine flowing, everyone clinking glasses. And then, without warning, Victoria leaned in close to Daniel, not realizing I was behind her. Her voice was low, but I heard every word. "Sometimes I wonder if your mother is even proud of you. She acts like she's done something special. But really, she's just a pathetic failure, nothing like my mother." The words echoed in my ears, louder than the clinking glasses, sharper than the silver cutlery. My breath caught in my throat. For a moment, I couldn't move. Could this really be the woman my son was marrying? I went home that night, trembling with anger and heartbreak. I thought about telling Daniel, but I knew he wouldn't believe me. Love had blinded him. I thought about confronting her, but I knew she would twist my words, make me look like the jealous mother who couldn't let go of her son. So instead, I made a decision. The next morning, before the wedding, I went into my room and opened the small wooden box where I kept my most precious possessions. Inside was an old voice recorder. My husband, Michael, had left it for me before he died. "Play this for Daniel on a special day," he had said. I had always imagined it would be a day of joy. But now I realized it might also be a day of truth. And so when the time for toasts came, I rose. My hands shook, my heart pounded. But I pressed play. The room grew silent. My late husband's voice filled the air. Everyone froze. And then, the room was already holding its breath as my late husband's voice echoed through the speakers. His tone was calm, filled with love for his son, blessings for his marriage, and pride in the man Daniel had become. Guests leaned in, their eyes glistening with tears. It was beautiful, heartbreaking, and unforgettable. But then, just as his words hung in the air, the doors to the hall swung open. Gasps filled the room. Heads turned. In walked a woman no one expected. Her name was Claire. I hadn't seen her in almost 15 years. Claire was Michael's younger sister, my son's aunt, but after Michael passed away, she vanished from our lives. She never visited, never called, and we all assumed she had cut ties for good. Yet here she was, stepping into the wedding as if summoned by fate. Claire looked older, worn down by time, but her eyes burned with a fire I remembered well. She didn't wait to be seated. She marched straight to the front, right toward me and the microphone. "Stop this wedding," she said, her voice sharp as broken glass. The hall erupted into whispers and gasps. The bride's face went pale. Daniel looked stunned. Victoria's wealthy mother stood up at once, furious. "This is outrageous. Who even let her in here?" But Claire ignored her. She pointed directly at Victoria, her finger trembling with rage. "She doesn't love him. She only loves what he has, and she's been lying to him from the very start." The room fell into chaos. Guests began murmuring, some even standing to get a better look. My son's face twisted in confusion. "What are you talking about?" he demanded. Claire pulled out her phone and held it high. "I have proof," she said. "Messages, pictures, conversations she never wanted you to see." The bride gasped, her hand flying to her chest. "She's lying," she cried out, her voice cracking. "Daniel, don't listen to her. She's jealous, she's bitter." But the panic in her eyes told another story. I felt frozen in place. This wasn't what I had planned. I had prepared to let Michael's recording speak the truth, but now something darker, something I hadn't expected, was unfolding right before my eyes. Daniel staggered back a step, his face drained of color. "Show me," he whispered. His voice shook, but there was steel in his eyes. "Show me everything." And that was when Claire, without hesitation, handed him the phone. The music had long stopped. The laughter was gone. All that remained in that grand hall was silence, thick and heavy, waiting for the storm that was about to break. I gripped the microphone, my heart racing. Part of me wanted to stop this, to shield my son from whatever truth was about to come crashing down. But another part of me, the part that had heard Victoria call me a pathetic failure, knew this was the moment of reckoning. Daniel unlocked the phone. His eyes scanned the screen. His jaw tightened. And then, he dropped the phone. The screen shattered against the floor. And that's when the entire room gasped louder than before. The sound of the phone hitting the marble floor was like a gunshot. Everyone flinched, and the silence that followed was deafening. You could hear glasses trembling in hands, the nervous shuffle of feet, the faint buzz of the microphone still in my grasp. Daniel's chest rose and fell heavily, his eyes glued to the shattered pieces at his feet. He didn't move to pick it up. Instead, he turned his face toward Victoria. "What is this?" His voice was low, rough, almost unrecognizable. Victoria's eyes darted from him to the guests, then back to him. A nervous laugh escaped her lips. "It's nothing, Daniel. It's just your aunt. She's always hated me. She's trying to ruin our day. You know how people can be when they're jealous." But Claire didn't flinch. She stood tall, her hands clenched into fists at her sides. "Jealous," she spat. "Do you want me to tell them, Victoria? Or would you rather they read it themselves?" The crowd buzzed with whispers. What's going on? Someone muttered. What did she mean? Another asked. Daniel ran a hand through his hair, looking lost. I had never seen my son so broken, so torn between love and fear, truth and denial. He bent slowly, scooping up the cracked phone. The screen was spiderwebbed, but still glowing. His trembling fingers swiped across the messages. The color drained from his face. Daniel, please. Victoria rushed forward, grabbing his arm. Don't do this here. Not in front of everyone. Let's talk in private. I can explain. He shook her off so hard she stumbled back, nearly tripping over her dress. His voice, when it came, was loud enough to echo across the hall. How long? She froze. How long have you been lying to me? His eyes glistened with unshed tears. But there was fire there too, fire I hadn't seen since he was a boy fighting to protect what he loved. Victoria swallowed hard, her lips trembling. She opened her mouth to answer, but the crowd's expectant silence forced her to shut it again. Claire stepped forward, her voice clear. She's been seeing someone else. Not just once, not just before the wedding, but even while planning it. I have the proof. She doesn't love you, Daniel. She never did. She only wanted the security, the name, the money. Gasps rippled through the room. Guests turned to one another, whispering fiercely. The bride's mother clutched her pearls, her face red with fury. This is slander, she shouted. You've ruined my daughter's wedding with these disgusting lies. But the more she screamed, the more it sounded like desperation. Victoria's mask began to crack. Her eyes darted again and again toward the exit, as though weighing whether she could escape. And then, Michael's voice continued from the recording still playing on the speakers. Daniel, son, when you stand at the start of your new life, remember this. Love is not about beauty or wealth. It is about honesty, trust, and respect. Choose a partner who lifts you up, not one who tears others down. The words landed like a hammer blow. Some guests put their hands to their mouths. Others stared at Victoria with thinly veiled disgust. Victoria broke. This isn't fair, she screamed, tears spilling down her face. You don't understand. I did what I had to do. I couldn't just throw my life away. Daniel's face twisted in pain. So it's true, he whispered. All of it. She tried to grab him again, but he stepped back, his shoulders heaving. Who is he? The question hit like a bullet. The hall held its breath. Even I found myself clutching the microphone tighter, waiting for the answer. Victoria's lips trembled. Her eyes darted again, searching for escape. Finally, she whispered. It doesn't matter. You'll never understand. But Claire wasn't finished. Then I'll tell him, she snapped. It's not just one man, Daniel. She's been meeting more than one. And one of them is in this room. The words shattered the hall. People gasped. Some shot up from their chairs. Victoria's mother's face turned ashen. All eyes darted around, searching for the guilty figure. Daniel staggered, his knees nearly buckling. He braced himself against the table, staring at his bride with disbelief. Is it true? Victoria covered her face, sobbing. Daniel, please, I never wanted you to find out like this. Rage, pain, betrayal. It all swirled in my son's eyes. He dropped the phone again and turned away from her, toward me. His lips parted, as if he wanted me to say something, to guide him, to shield him like I did when he was a boy. But before I could speak, someone in the back of the hall stood up. A man. His face pale, his suit disheveled. And when I saw him, my stomach dropped. It was Daniel's best friend. His best man. Gasps tore through the crowd like wildfire. Someone dropped a glass. It shattered across the floor. The bride's sobs grew louder, almost hysterical now. Daniel stared at his friend as though seeing a stranger. His lips trembled. You. The man didn't answer right away. His silence was its own confession. Victoria wailed, falling to her knees in her gown, clutching the fabric in both hands. I didn't mean for it to happen. I love you, Daniel, I swear I do. It was a mistake, a terrible mistake. But the damage was done. Daniel's hands curled into fists, his chest rising and falling with raw fury. You betrayed me, he said, his voice breaking. Both of you. The crowd was in chaos now. Some guests were shouting, others trying to calm the situation, and others too stunned to move. Claire stood tall, her eyes burning with vindication. I, however, felt no triumph, only heartbreak. My son's wedding, the day that was meant to mark his happiest moment, had turned into a battlefield. And just when I thought nothing worse could happen, the lights went out. Total darkness swallowed the room. Screams erupted. Chairs scraped against the floor. Glasses tipped over. Somewhere in the chaos, I heard Victoria shriek. Then in that pitch-black silence, came a sound that froze my blood. A single deafening gunshot. And the room erupted into panic. The sound of the gunshot tore through the blackness like lightning in a storm. For one frozen moment no one moved. Then chaos exploded. Screams echoed. Glass shattered. Guests scrambled in every direction, knocking over chairs and tables as they fled. In the dark, people collided, falling to the floor, their cries mixing with the pounding of feet. "Turn the lights on," someone yelled. My heart hammered against my ribs as I gripped the microphone stand, too afraid to move. My mind raced. Had someone been hit? Was my son safe? Then, just as suddenly as they had gone out, the lights flickered back to life. What I saw nearly stopped my heart. Victoria, still in her white gown, was sprawled across the floor near the center of the hall. Her veil was torn, her hair tangled, her hands clutching at her chest. Guests gasped, covering their mouths, pointing. A thin trail of blood stained the fabric of her dress. Daniel dropped to his knees beside her. "Victoria, stay with me." His voice cracked with desperation, his hands pressing against her gown as if he could stop the bleeding with sheer will. But her eyes were wide, terrified. "I didn't mean for it to be this way," she whispered, her voice barely audible. The crowd closed in, half in shock, half trying to see what had happened. Someone screamed, "Call 911. Another cried, "She's been shot." But then Claire stepped forward, her face pale but her voice steady. "No, look closer. She's not the only one." The room spun as eyes darted around. That was when we saw it. Daniel's best friend, the best man, clutching his arm. His sleeve was soaked with blood, his face twisted in pain. He was slumped against a table, struggling to stay conscious. 2 victims. 1 bullet. How did this happen?" someone stammered. "Who fired the gun?" That was the question ripping through all our minds. But the gun was nowhere to be seen. Daniel looked up, his face streaked with sweat and panic. His eyes locked on mine. "Mom, what do we do?" I opened my mouth to answer, but before I could, the hall doors burst open. 2 police officers stormed in, weapons drawn, shouting commands. "Nobody move. Hands where we can see them." The entire room froze. Panic turned to terror. Who had fired the shot? Where was the weapon? And then one of the officers' voices cut through the silence. "We've received a tip-off," he announced grimly. "The shooter is still inside this room." The crowd gasped again, louder than before. People looked at one another with suspicion, horror dawning on their faces. And that was when the officer raised his finger and pointed directly at me. The officer's finger felt like the barrel of a gun itself, cold and heavy, pinning me where I stood. My mouth went dry. A murmur ran through the guests as dozens of eyes turned toward me, filled with shock, suspicion, and fear. "Me." My voice cracked, trembling. "You think I did this?" The officer stepped forward, his partner close behind. Both had their hands hovering over their holsters. "We received an anonymous call before the shot was fired," he said firmly. "A woman matching your description was seen carrying a weapon inside this building." The words hit me like a hammer. My knees wobbled. "That's impossible. I've never touched a gun in my life." But the crowd wasn't listening. Fear made them restless. Whispers spread like wildfire. Could it be true? Why would she? She did look angry during the toast. I wanted to scream at them all, to remind them I was Daniel's mother, that I'd raised him alone after Michael died, that I'd sacrificed everything for him. But when you're standing in a hall full of fear, reason is the last thing people want to hear. "Mom!" Daniel's voice cut through the noise. He looked up from where he was kneeling beside Victoria, his eyes wide and glassy. He looked like a boy again, scared, uncertain. "Tell me it's not true." My heart shattered. "Daniel," I whispered. "Of course it's not true. You know me." But even as I spoke, the officer was approaching, his voice commanding. "Ma'am, Step away from the microphone and keep your hands where we can see them. I raised my hands slowly, tears burning my eyes. I could barely breathe. How had I gone from being the mother of the groom to a suspect in an attempted murder? Then Claire stepped forward, her voice shaking with fury. This is insane. She didn't do it. I was standing right beside her when the lights went out. The officer glanced at her but didn't lower his guard. We'll sort this out later. For now, we need to make sure everyone is safe. Nobody leaves until we find the weapon. The tension in the hall thickened. Guests clutched their loved ones, eyes darting nervously around the room. Somewhere in the back, someone sobbed. Victoria groaned weakly on the floor, her gown stained red. The best man slumped against the table, barely conscious. And I, Elizabeth Carter, mother of the groom, stood under the accusing finger of the law. As they started moving toward me, something inside me snapped. I straightened my back and spoke with a voice I didn't know I had. You want the truth? Then look at the one person who had the most to lose if this wedding fell apart. My eyes cut toward Victoria's mother. The room gasped. Heads turned. Her face flushed a deep red, but she sneered, standing tall. How dare you? How dare you accuse me in front of all these people? You hated me from the start. I shot back, my voice trembling but strong. You thought I wasn't good enough for your daughter, that I was a failure. You said it to my face. And you knew if Daniel found out the truth about Victoria, this wedding would collapse. And so would the image of your perfect family. The officer frowned, glancing between us. For a moment, suspicion shifted. But then the bride's mother spoke with venom. You're pathetic, she hissed. Always playing the victim. If anyone had a motive, it was you. You wanted to stop this wedding because you couldn't stand that your son chose my daughter over you. Gasps filled the hall. The whispering began again. Some nodded, some shook their heads. Doubt clawed at me, but I held my ground. Before the officers could move again, a new sound cut through the chaos. The faint buzz of a phone. Daniel's cracked phone, still lying on the floor, was lighting up with an incoming call. The screen flickered. Fractured but visible. The caller ID read, unknown. Something in my gut twisted. Answer it, Claire urged. Daniel hesitated, then picked it up, putting it on speaker. The hall fell into silence, every ear straining to catch the voice on the other end. A distorted, mechanical voice filled the room. I told you not to dig into the truth. Now look what's happened. If anyone else interferes, more will fall. A collective shiver ran through the hall. The voice continued, cold and calm. The shooter is still here. And you'll never find me before I find my next target. The line went dead. Screams erupted. Some guests bolted for the exits, only to be stopped by the officers. Panic spread like wildfire again. People looked at one another with suspicion, as if every friend, every family member, every guest could be the hidden enemy. Daniel gripped the phone tightly, his face pale as death. This is some kind of sick game, he whispered. I moved toward him, placing a hand on his shoulder. No, Daniel. It's not a game. It's a warning. The officers began barking orders, trying to restore order. Everyone stay where you are. Nobody moves until we search the hall. But even as they spoke, I felt it. A presence. A pair of eyes watching me from somewhere in the crowd. Cold. Unblinking. Hidden in plain sight. I scanned the faces, but everyone looked guilty now, sweating, nervous, terrified. And then I saw him. In the far corner of the hall, near the buffet table, stood a man I didn't recognize. He wasn't dressed like the other guests. His suit was dark, too plain, too ill-fitting. He didn't clap, didn't cry, didn't even flinch when the shot went off. He just stood there, staring at me. Our eyes locked. A chill ran down my spine. And then he smiled. It wasn't a warm smile. It was cold, deliberate, cruel. A smile that told me he knew exactly what he'd done. I opened my mouth to scream, to point him out. But before I could, the lights flickered again. The room groaned with fear. And when the lights came back on, he was gone. The corner was empty. And in his place, lying on the white tablecloth, was a gun. The gun sat there on the white tablecloth like a viper, dark and menacing. People shrieked the moment they saw it. Guests stumbled backward, clutching their loved ones, terrified to even breathe near it. The officers rushed forward. One of them barked. Nobody touched that weapon. He pulled on gloves, snatched the gun up carefully, and examined it. His partner scanned the crowd, his eyes sharp, searching for movement. "Who put it there?" someone cried. "I didn't see anyone. But I had. Or at least I thought I had." The man in the ill-fitting suit. The one who had smiled at me just moments before the lights flickered. He had vanished like smoke, leaving behind the very thing meant to destroy me. I opened my mouth to speak, but fear clawed at my throat. What if no one believed me? They already thought I might be guilty. Pointing at a man no one else saw would make me look desperate. Crazy even. The officer holding the gun turned toward me. His eyes narrowed. "This doesn't clear you, ma'am. If anything, it makes you look worse. The weapon was found near where you were standing." My stomach dropped. The crowd stirred uneasily, their stares burning into me. Some guests whispered, "Maybe she really did." She was angry. "What if it's true?" "Wait." Claire's voice cut through the noise. She stormed forward, her finger pointing at Victoria. "Why are you all ignoring the obvious? Look at her. Look at what she's done to this family. She's the reason all this started." Victoria groaned weakly from the floor, her pale hand clutching her blood-stained gown. I didn't do this," she gasped, her words trembling. "I swear it wasn't me." Daniel's face was torn apart by confusion, grief, and anger. His hands shook as he pressed them against his bride's wound, his voice low and hoarse. "If you're lying again, Victoria, I'll never forgive you." The officers ignored the argument. One of them raised his voice above the chaos. "The shooter is still inside this building. Nobody leaves until we review every guest." That was when a scream pierced the air. Everyone turned. A woman stood near the back of the hall, her face frozen in terror. She was pointing toward the balcony above. "There," she cried. "Up there." Dozens of heads snapped upward. And in the shadows of the balcony railing, a figure stood, tall, motionless, watching us like a predator stalking prey. The same man. I knew it instantly. That smile was unmistakable. Cold. Cruel. The moment our eyes met again, he raised his hand. Something glinted in the light. The gun wasn't the only weapon. And then he aimed. The gleam of metal in his hand froze every breath in the hall. For one endless heartbeat, no one moved. Then the figure on the balcony lifted the weapon higher. His posture steady, his face eerily calm. "Down!" one of the officers shouted. Chaos erupted. Guests screamed, dropping beneath tables, grabbing children, clinging to spouses. Chairs toppled over, glass shattered across the floor, and the once beautiful wedding hall became a battlefield. I fell to the ground, the microphone clattering beside me. My pulse pounded in my ears as I looked up, catching the cold gaze of the man above. His eyes never wavered, locked on me like a predator sizing up its prey. The officers drew their weapons. "Drop it!" one yelled, his voice echoing through the hall. "Put the gun down now." But the man didn't flinch. He tilted his head slightly, almost amused, then slowly raised his free hand and pointed directly at me. Whispers rippled through the terrified crowd. "He's pointing at her, at the mother of the groom." Why her? My heart lurched. Why me? Why was I his target? The officers inched forward, their weapons trained on him. "Put it down," they barked again. The man smirked. And then he spoke for the first time, his voice deep and chilling, carrying easily across the hall. "She knows why." The words stabbed me like knives. My stomach twisted, my chest heaved. Me? What did I know? Daniel's voice cut through the chaos, raw and desperate. "Leave her alone. If you have a problem, take it out on me." The gunman's eyes flicked toward my son just briefly, then back to me. That cruel smile widened. "Like father, like son," he said. "The sins of the past always come back." Gasps filled the room. People looked at me, confusion and suspicion in their eyes. "What's he talking about?" someone whispered. I shook my head violently. "I don't know him. I don't know what he's talking about." But even as I said it, a strange sinking feeling began to claw at my chest. The way he said it, the certainty in his voice. Michael, my late husband. Could this man have known him? Before I could think further, a sudden bang echoed through the hall, not a gunshot, but the sound of something heavy falling. One of the chandeliers rattled violently as if struck. Dust and glass rained down. Screams erupted again. The officers fired. Bullets cracked through the air, striking the railing. The gunman ducked, vanishing into the shadows. Go! Go! One officer shouted, charging toward the staircase. His partner followed, pushing through the crowd as guests scattered in every direction. I scrambled to my feet, my legs shaking. My son was still on the floor, clutching Victoria as she whimpered weakly. Claire grabbed my arm. Elizabeth, we have to move. He's after you. But I couldn't leave Daniel. My son looked up at me, his eyes wide with fear. Mom. What's happening? Who is he? Why is he saying those things? I don't know, I whispered, though doubt gnawed at me. I swear I don't know. The crackle of gunfire rang out again, this time from upstairs. Shouts followed. More screams. The sound of running footsteps overhead. And then silence. Everyone in the hall froze, their eyes glued to the staircase. Seconds ticked by like hours. Then one of the officers stumbled back down, his face pale, his uniform streaked with dust. He's gone, the officer said breathlessly. We searched the balcony, nothing. It's like he vanished. The crowd murmured in disbelief. People exchanged frightened glances, some clutching their chests, others shaking their heads in shock. How could a man just disappear like that? He's playing with us, Claire muttered under her breath. The officer still holding the first gun, the one found on the table, spoke grimly. Whoever he is, he wants her. His eyes met mine. He wants you. The room fell silent again. Dozens of eyes turned toward me, and for the first time in my life, I felt like prey in front of a hungry pack. Victoria coughed weakly, her voice trembling. He's not lying. He's after her. It's always been about her. Her words were barely a whisper, but they cut through the room like thunder. Daniel whipped his head toward her. What do you mean? Do you know him? Victoria's lips quivered, her face pale. She hesitated, then whispered again. He told me not to marry you. He said your mother's past would destroy everything. I didn't believe him, but now. The crowd erupted into whispers. My head spun. No, that's impossible. She's lying again. She's trying to save herself. But Daniel's face said otherwise. His eyes locked on mine, filled with questions I couldn't answer. Mom, he said quietly, almost pleading. What is going on? What aren't you telling me? My throat tightened. How could I explain something I didn't even understand myself? I wanted to deny it, to insist I had no secrets, no past sins. But deep inside a memory stirred. A memory I had buried for decades. Michael. My husband. The way he used to wake at night in a cold sweat. The way he'd whisper, "One day it'll catch up to us." The words I had brushed aside, too afraid to ask. Could this be it? Could the man on the balcony be tied to Michael's past? Before I could respond, the officer's radio crackled. Static filled the hall, followed by a chilling voice. The same distorted tone from the earlier phone call. You can't hide her. You can't protect her. Tonight the truth will be revealed. And when it is, blood will flow. The line cut off with a hiss. The officer swore under his breath, gripping his radio tightly. He's taunting us. He's watching us right now. Fear rippled through the hall. Some guests cried openly, others demanded to leave, but the officer stood firm. No one moves until this man is found, one barked. Daniel turned back to me, his eyes hard now. Mom, if you know something, anything, you need to tell me. Who is he? Why is he after you? I swallowed hard, my chest aching. Daniel. I wish I knew. I swear I don't know who he is. But maybe your father did. His expression shifted, confusion mixing with fear. Dad? But he's... I nodded. Dead. I know. But maybe this has nothing to do with me, and everything to do with him. Before Daniel could answer, another scream erupted, louder, sharper than before. All eyes snapped toward the front of the hall. One of the guests, a young woman in a blue dress, was standing frozen in place. Her hands trembled as she pointed toward the stage. On the white wedding cake, once beautiful and untouched, a message had been scrawled in red. Large, bold letters dripping down the icing. She must pay. And underneath it, my name. The hall went silent. Not the silence of calm, but the heavy, suffocating silence of horror. every eye fixed on the cake. Once a symbol of love and celebration, now twisted into a blood-red message of hate. She must pay. Elizabeth. My knees nearly buckled. Someone whispered, "Her name. It's her name." And the words rippled through the crowd like wildfire. The officers rushed forward, examining the dripping letters. One touched the icing with a gloved hand, sniffed it. "This isn't icing," he said grimly. "It's blood." Gasps filled the room. Some guests gagged. Others covered their mouths, horrified. The beautiful cake stood there, desecrated, its message glowing like a curse under the bright hall lights. Daniel turned to me, his face pale, his eyes wide. "Mom. What is happening? Why is this all about you?" "I don't know," I whispered, though the doubt in my voice betrayed me. "I swear to you, Daniel, I don't know." Claire stepped between us, her jaw tight. "Whoever this man is, he's obsessed with you, Elizabeth. He doesn't just want to ruin the wedding. He wants to destroy you." Her words struck me hard. Obsessed. That was exactly what it felt like. His gaze, his voice, the way he singled me out. This wasn't random. This was personal. The officers tried to calm the crowd, but panic had already taken hold. Guests pushed toward the doors only to be shoved back. "Everyone stays inside," one officer barked. "The shooter is still here. Until we know who's behind this, no one leaves." A man in the back shouted angrily, "We're prisoners now? What if he comes after us next?" His fear echoed what everyone was thinking. And then from the balcony above, a voice rang out. Deep, cold, familiar. "She knows what she did. And until she admits it, more blood will spill." Every head snapped upward. He was there again, leaning casually on the railing, as if he hadn't just vanished into thin air minutes ago. His gun gleamed under the lights. This time, though, he wasn't smiling. His eyes burned with rage. I felt Daniel grab my arm protectively. The crowd shrank back, terrified. The man's voice thundered again. "Elizabeth Carter, confess." And before anyone could react, he fired. The crack of the gunshot split the air like lightning. Instantly, screams tore through the hall as guests dove under tables and pressed themselves against walls. Glass shattered, plates clattered, and the elegant wedding reception dissolved into chaos. I ducked instinctively, my hands flying to my ears. My heart thudded in my chest so violently I thought it might burst. For a split second I couldn't breathe. Had he shot me? Was I dead? But then I felt Daniel's arms around me, dragging me behind an overturned table. His chest heaved against mine, his face pale. "Mom, are you hit?" I shook my head wildly, my trembling hands running over my arms and chest. No blood. No pain. I was alive. A piercing cry from across the hall told me someone else wasn't. "Help! Somebody help him!" I lifted my head just enough to see through the chaos. A man in a gray suit, one of the groomsmen, was on the floor, clutching his shoulder. Blood seeped between his fingers, staining his jacket. His bride-to-be knelt beside him, her sobs echoing through the room. The gunman hadn't hit me. He'd shot someone else. "Stay down," one of the officers roared, returning fire toward the balcony. Bullets ripped through the air, splintering wood and rattling the chandelier above. But when the dust cleared, the balcony was empty. He was gone. Again. The officers spread out, barking into their radios, calling for reinforcements. Guests sobbed and clung to each other, trembling with fear. The wedding hall, once filled with music and laughter, now stank of gunpowder and panic. Daniel gripped my shoulders, his eyes searching mine desperately. "Mom, this has to stop. He's not just threatening you anymore, he's shooting people. He'll kill everyone here if you don't." He stopped himself, but I knew what he wanted to say. If I didn't confess. My voice cracked. "Daniel, I don't know what he wants from me. I swear to you I don't." But even as the words left my lips, my mind raced. What if Michael had been hiding something? What if this man wasn't after me for who I was, but for who my husband had been? Claire crawled to us, her face hard, determined. "Elizabeth, you can't keep saying you don't know. He knows your name. He knows your family. There's a reason he's here. And you need to dig deep into your past before someone else dies." I stopped. My chest heaved, my throat dry. There was something. A memory I had pushed away for years. Michael's voice whispering in the dark. If anything ever happens to me, don't open the box. Burn it. The box. Hidden away in the attic. I'd never touched it after his death. But what if this man knew? What if the secret inside that box was the reason we were here now, trapped in this nightmare? Before I could tell Claire, another voice rose from the chaos. It was Victoria. She was still pale, still clutching her wound, but her eyes gleamed with something strange, half fear, half triumph. "He's not wrong," she croaked, her voice carrying despite her weakness. "Elizabeth knows exactly what she did. She's been hiding it for years." The room went silent again. Every gaze turned toward me. Daniel's face twisted in confusion and pain. "Victoria, what are you saying?" She coughed, her lips trembling. "She's not the woman you think she is. None of you know the truth about her. But I do. He told me." "You're lying," I snapped, though my voice shook. "You're trying to twist this to save yourself." Victoria's hand trembled as she pointed weakly at me. "Ask her. Ask her what Michael was mixed up in before he died. Ask her what she's been hiding in that house." The crowd murmured, eyes narrowing, whispers filling the room like buzzing bees. Doubt. Suspicion. Fear. Daniel looked at me, his face torn apart by confusion. "Mom, what's she talking about? What did Dad do?" My throat locked. My son deserved the truth. But how could I tell him something I didn't fully understand myself? Michael had been a good man to me, a loving father to Daniel. But he had secrets. Dark ones, maybe. And if I spoke them aloud, would they destroy the only family I had left? Before I could answer, the lights in the hall flickered. Once. Twice. And then went out completely. Screams filled the darkness. Hands clawed, chairs scraped, people stumbled. The blackness was absolute. Then a single spotlight snapped on, illuminating the stage. And there he was. The gunman. Standing tall, his weapon gleaming in the light, his shadow stretching across the cake where my name was written in blood. Gasps echoed as the beam of light locked us all into his theater. He raised the gun again, his voice echoing in the silence. "No more games. Elizabeth Carter, your time is up. Tell them what you did, or I'll start killing them one by one." He turned the gun toward a trembling young girl near the front row. Her mother shrieked, throwing herself in front of her child. The crowd erupted in panic, but the man's voice boomed above them all. "Confess, Elizabeth." Now. My chest heaved. My mouth opened, but no words came. Sweat dripped down my back. The walls seemed to close in. Daniel grabbed my arm, his voice breaking. "Mom, please, if you know something, tell him. Tell us. Don't let him kill anyone else." Tears blurred my vision. My son. My family. Innocent people. How could I protect them if I didn't even know the full truth myself? And then the man's gun shifted. Aimed not at me this time, but at Daniel. "Confess," he growled, his finger tightening on the trigger. "Or I'll take your son first." The sight of the barrel aimed at my son's chest froze me in place. My heart thundered so hard I thought it might explode. "No," I screamed, lurching forward instinctively. "Please, not him. Leave him alone." The man's expression was carved from stone, his finger resting steady on the trigger. His voice was low, deliberate. "Then confess. Admit what you've hidden. Tell them the truth about who you are." Daniel's eyes widened, his face pale. "Mom, what is he talking about?" His voice cracked, caught between fear and disbelief. My knees buckled beneath me. Every nerve in my body screamed to say something, anything, to protect my child. But what truth? The box in the attic? Michael's mysterious past? The whispers he never explained? The gunman's eyes narrowed. "You're wasting time." Gasps echoed as he cocked the weapon. The click was deafening. Several guests sobbed, clutching each other, praying this nightmare would end. "Wait!" I shouted, throwing my hands up. My chest heaved, tears streaming down my face. There is something I've kept hidden." The hall went silent. Every gaze bore into me, heavy and expectant. The man lowered the gun slightly, his head tilting. "Go on." My voice trembled as I spoke, my words raw and broken. "Before Michael died, he told me to burn a box hidden in our attic. He made me promise never to open it, never to ask questions. I don't know what's inside, but I think I think it's the reason you're here. Whispers rippled through the crowd. Daniel stared at me, his jaw slack. You never told me? I was trying to protect you. I whispered, my voice cracking. I didn't know what it meant. I thought if I ignored it, it would die with him. The gunman let out a sharp, humorless laugh. So you do remember? His voice dripped with venom. Michael thought he could hide forever. But the past doesn't stay buried. Daniel's face contorted, torn between terror and rage. He turned back to the gunman, shouting, What's in the box? What do you want from us? The man leaned closer into the spotlight, his cold smile returning. You'll find out soon enough. Because if she doesn't open it, he raised the gun again, aiming straight at Daniel. You won't live to see tomorrow. The spotlight burned down on us like a merciless eye. The barrel of the gun gleamed as the man pressed forward, aiming directly at Daniel's chest. My son's life hung by a thread, and that thread was knotted around my secrets. Mom, Daniel whispered, his voice cracking. If there's something you're not telling me, you have to say it now. Please. Tears clouded my vision. My throat tightened. Every word like broken glass scraping through. I swear, Daniel, I don't know exactly what's in that box. But I know it's dangerous. Your father made me promise never to open it. He said it would destroy us. The gunman's lips curled into a cold smile. Destroy you? No. It will reveal you. Michael was a coward, but he knew the truth always comes out. And tonight it will. The crowd around us trembled, their whispers like a storm. Some looked at me with pity, others with suspicion. To them, I was no longer just the mother of the groom. I was a woman with secrets, maybe even lies. The officers edged forward, guns raised, voices steady. Drop your weapon. Now. The gunman didn't even glance at them. His eyes bored into mine, sharp and unrelenting. Bring me the box, Elizabeth, or your son dies before your eyes. My heart stopped. It's at my house, I stammered. In the attic. Locked away. Then we're going on a little trip. His tone was casual, almost mocking, as though this were all part of a twisted game. The officers barked in protest. You're not taking anyone out of this building. Put the gun down and surrender. The man's smile widened as he pressed the barrel closer to Daniel. My son flinched, but his jaw tightened. Brave boy. Do you want his blood on your hands? The gunman sneered. Because if I pull this trigger, it won't be me who killed him. It'll be you, for keeping the truth buried. Gasps filled the room. All eyes turned to me, the weight of judgment pressing down like a mountain. My knees shook. My son's life was slipping through my fingers, and the only thing I could grasp was the memory of Michael's voice. Burn the box, Elizabeth. Don't ever open it. Why hadn't I listened? Why hadn't I destroyed it? Daniel's hand found mine, his voice steady despite the terror in his eyes. Mom, do it. Tell him where it is. Whatever's in there, we'll face it together. The love in his words shattered something inside me. I nodded, choking back a sob. Fine, I said hoarsely, lifting my eyes to the man. You want the box? I'll take you to it. Just don't hurt him. For the first time, the man lowered his weapon slightly. The tension in the hall loosened by a hair, though fear still clung to every corner. But then, before anyone could move, Claire stepped forward. Her voice cut through the silence like a blade. No. Absolutely not. All eyes turned to her. She stood tall, her arms folded, her eyes blazing with defiance. You don't get to drag her away like some hostage. You've terrorized us enough. The gunman's head tilted, amusement flickering across his face. And who are you to stop me? I'm her best friend, Claire snapped. And I'm not letting you manipulate her. If you want that box so badly, you'll have to get through me first. My heart lurched. Brave, foolish Claire. The man chuckled darkly, raising the gun again. That can be arranged. No. I screamed, throwing myself between them. My arms spread wide, shielding Claire. Take me. Leave her out of this. The man's smile returned, sharp and cruel. Oh, don't worry. I only want you. The rest of them. He glanced at the crowd, his voice dripping with menace. They're just witnesses. Daniel's voice broke through the panic. If you hurt her, I swear I'll. Quiet, boy. the gunman snapped, swinging the gun back toward him. Your father's sins belong to her. But you'll bleed for them too if she disobeys. The officers took another step forward, weapons aimed. This is your last warning, one shouted. The man's gaze flicked toward them, then back to me. His finger flexed on the trigger, his face tightening. For a moment I thought he was going to fire. Then he laughed. Low and bitter. You don't get it, do you? He said, his voice echoing through the hall. This isn't about death. It's about truth. And until she drags it into the light, no one here is safe. And with that he fired again. The shot rang out, the sound so sharp it felt like my eardrums burst. I screamed, dropping to the floor. Daniel cried out beside me, and chaos exploded once more as guests ducked. Officers fired, and the lights flickered again. When I dared to lift my head, my blood ran cold. The bullet hadn't hit me. It had struck the photograph. The giant framed wedding photo of Daniel and Victoria, displayed proudly near the stage, now lay shattered on the ground. Glass shards glittered like ice around the torn picture. The gunman's voice rang out one last time before he vanished into the shadows. The past is already broken. And soon so will she. The lights cut out completely. Darkness swallowed the hall. And when they flickered back, he was gone. The silence after his disappearance was unbearable. Only the sobs of frightened guests and the crackle of broken glass filled the air. Officers swept the balcony with flashlights, but the man had vanished once more, like smoke slipping through fingers. Daniel knelt beside me, his chest heaving. Mom, this can't keep happening. He'll kill someone for real next time. His eyes burned with desperation. We have to get that box. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. The thought of opening it chilled me to my core, but Daniel was right. The gunman wouldn't stop. Not until the secrets Michael left behind were dragged into the open. Claire crouched beside us, her face pale but determined. Elizabeth, listen to me. Whatever's in that attic, it's the key. He's not going to vanish forever. The box is the only thing keeping you, and all of us, alive. My hands trembled. But Michael warned me. He begged me never to open it. What if it's worse than I can handle? Claire's voice softened. What if not opening it costs your son his life? Her words pierced me like a blade. I turned to Daniel, who was staring at me with eyes that begged for honesty, for courage. He had already lost his father. I couldn't let him lose his mother too. I nodded slowly, the weight of the decision sinking heavy in my chest. All right. I'll take you to the box. Before anyone could respond, a sudden crash echoed from the far end of the hall. One of the side doors had been forced open, its hinges groaning. Guests screamed again, huddling together. Officers rushed toward the noise, weapons raised. But when they flung the door wide, there was nothing. Just a dark corridor, stretching into silence. He's toying with us, one officer muttered. And then, faint but clear, a voice drifted through the corridor, low, mocking, and unmistakably his. You can run to the attic, Elizabeth. But remember, the box won't just save you. It will destroy you. The door slammed shut with a thunderous bang. The hall erupted into chaos again. The room buzzed with fear after the gunman's voice faded into the dark corridor. Guests clung to one another, whispering frantic prayers, while officers barked orders to restore order. But the only words I could hear were his. The box won't just save you. It will destroy you. Daniel gripped my shoulders, his eyes burning with urgency. Mom, we can't wait any longer. If that box is what he wants, we need to get it before he comes back. Claire stood beside him, her jaw set. He'll keep hunting you until you open it, Elizabeth. And the longer you hesitate, the more people are in danger. I felt the weight of every stare in the hall. Guests who had once looked at me with warmth and respect now looked at me as though I were the key to their nightmare. Perhaps I was. The lead officer, a tall man with steel-gray eyes, stepped forward. Mrs. Carter will escort you. But we're not letting that man run the show. If the box is critical, we secure it under police control. Understood. I nodded weakly. I didn't trust my voice. Daniel slipped his hand into mine, squeezing it tightly. We'll go together. Whatever's in that box, we'll face it as a family. His words gave me strength I didn't feel. We left the shattered wedding hall in a convoy of police vehicles. The flashing red and blue lights painted the night sky as if even the heavens were unsettled. Guests were kept inside under guard, terrified but alive. As we drove through the quiet streets, I stared out the window, my mind spinning. I thought of Michael, the secrets in his eyes, the nightmares that jolted him awake, the hushed phone calls he'd always claimed were work. The way he had pressed my hands before he died, whispering urgently, "Don't open it. Promise me, Elizabeth. Burn it if you must, but never open it." And I had promised. For years, I'd kept it buried in dust and shadows, convinced it was better not to know. Now I wondered if I had made a terrible mistake. The convoy pulled into my driveway. The familiar sight of my home, usually comforting, now felt sinister under the wash of flashing lights. Officers fanned out, weapons drawn, securing the perimeter. "Stay close," the gray-eyed officer instructed as he led us inside. "If he's been here, we'll find out." The house was eerily still. Every creak of the floorboards echoed like thunder. My heart pounded harder with each step toward the attic ladder. Daniel stayed glued to my side, his face pale but resolute. Claire followed closely, her flashlight cutting through the shadows. "Elizabeth," she whispered. "Are you sure you're ready for this?" "No," I admitted, my voice trembling. "But I don't have a choice anymore." We reached the hallway leading to the attic. My knees threatened to buckle. The old wooden ladder loomed above us like the mouth of a monster. Daniel looked at me. "I'll go up first." "No," I said quickly. "If anyone should face this, it's me. It's my burden." But before I could climb, one of the officers ascended with his flashlight, searching the attic. Silence stretched as we waited. Dust rained down with every movement above us. Finally, his voice called out, "Clear. Just boxes and old furniture." Relief swept through me, though it was thin and fragile. The officer helped me up the ladder. The attic was musty, filled with old trunks, faded photographs, and the forgotten clutter of decades. And there in the far corner, half buried under a moth-eaten quilt, was the box. Small, wooden, its surface scarred and weathered, but the heavy lock across its lid remained untouched. My legs trembled as I knelt before it. I reached out with shaking hands, brushing away the dust. Michael's voice whispered in my memory, "Never open it." Claire crouched beside me, her eyes fixed on the box. "That's it, isn't it?" I nodded slowly. My throat felt like sandpaper. "Yes. This is what he died trying to protect." Daniel's voice cracked behind me. "Then open it, Mom. Whatever it is, we need to know." The officers shifted uneasily, their weapons ready as though expecting the box itself to leap open and attack. I fumbled with the lock. My hands were slick with sweat, trembling so badly I could barely hold the key I had hidden for years in the back of my jewelry box. I slid it in, turned it. Click. The sound echoed like a gunshot in the still attic. I lifted the lid. The air seemed to grow colder, heavier. Inside, wrapped in brittle yellowing cloth, were stacks of documents, photographs, and a black leather notebook. A faint metallic smell rose from within, sharp and unpleasant. Daniel leaned over my shoulder. "What is it?" My fingers brushed the top document. The letters stamped across it made my stomach twist. "Classified. U.S. Department of Defense." I froze. My pulse roared in my ears. Claire's flashlight caught a photograph beneath it. A younger Michael stood among a group of men in military uniforms, but something was wrong. They weren't smiling. Their faces were hard, grim. And in the background, fires, smoke, destruction. The notebook slid from the pile, landing open across my lap. Scribbled across the first page in Michael's handwriting were the words, "If you're reading this, then I'm dead. And if he's found you, God help you all." I gasped. The attic seemed to spin around me. "Mom!" Daniel's voice shook. What does it mean?" Before I could answer, a loud crash shook the house below. Shouts rang out. Officers barked orders. Then came the unmistakable crack of gunfire. Claire's eyes widened. "He's here." Another shot. Boots pounded up the stairs. And from the darkness below, his voice rose, chilling and triumphant. "You opened it, Elizabeth. Now there's no going back." The gunfire thundered again, shaking the floorboards beneath us. Officers shouted from below, returning fire, their voices cutting through the chaos. But through it all, his voice carried smooth and menacing. You should have listened to your husband, Elizabeth. Now every secret you dragged into the light will bury you. Daniel grabbed my arm, pulling me back from the open attic hatch. Mom, we have to get out. If he makes it up here, we're trapped. I clutched the box to my chest, the weight of it almost unbearable. We can't leave it. This is what he's after. Claire pressed her back against a beam, her flashlight trembling in her hand. Elizabeth, think. If he wants the box, give it to him. Better that than your lives. But I knew better. The way he had hunted us, taunted me at the wedding, appeared and vanished like a ghost. It wasn't just about possession. He wanted me to suffer. He wanted me to understand. Handing over the box wouldn't end this. The attic hatch suddenly burst open. A gloved hand gripped the edge. Daniel lunged, kicking hard. The hand slipped, and a guttural growl echoed from below. A gunshot ripped through the wood, splinters exploding inches from Daniel's leg. Stay down. One of the officers shouted from the stairs, firing into the hallway. The air reeked of gunpowder and fear. I crouched low, clutching the box, my heart hammering. For a moment, silence returned, heavy and suffocating. Then, footsteps retreated into the house, deliberate and slow, like a predator circling prey. He's not leaving, Claire whispered. He's waiting for us to move. The officer nearest the attic climbed up halfway, his face slick with sweat. Mrs. Carter, we need to evacuate you now. There's a back exit. But you'll have to move fast. Can you do that? I hesitated, staring at the open box in my lap. The notebook's first page seemed to glare at me. Michael's warning carved into my mind. If he's found you, God help you all. Daniel tugged at me, desperate. Mom, please. I closed the box, snapping the lock shut. My hands shook, but my voice came out steady. Yes. Let's go. The officer nodded and started down. Claire followed. Daniel right behind me as I clutched the box against my chest like a shield. Each step down the attic ladder echoed like a drumbeat of doom. We had barely reached the hallway when a chilling laugh echoed through the house. You can run, Elizabeth. The gunman's voice hissed from the shadows. But where will you hide when the truth itself is hunting you? A crash sounded behind us, glass shattering, wood splintering. And then the power went out. Darkness swallowed the house. The lights blinked out with a crackle, leaving us in suffocating blackness. The only sound was the rapid thud of my heart, loud in my ears, and Daniel's shaky breathing beside me. The officers cursed under their breath, fumbling for flashlights, but the gunman's mocking laugh carried easily through the silence. You opened the box, Elizabeth. His voice whispered, shifting from room to room as if he were everywhere at once. Now you've cursed us all. The flashlight beam from the officer cut through the dark, catching shattered glass glittering across the floor. Dust floated in the pale circle of light. Shadows stretched long and twisted across the walls. Stay close, the officer hissed. He cut the power. He knows this house better than we do. Daniel's hand found mine. His grip was cold, clammy. Mom, he's playing with us. I squeezed his hand back, forcing strength into my voice though fear gnawed at my insides. We're not going to let him win. The box weighed heavy in my other arm, pressing against me like a heartbeat. I could feel Michael's warning pounding inside me with every step. Never open it. But I already had. And what I found inside only deepened the nightmare. We moved cautiously down the hall, Claire just behind me. Her breath came in shallow bursts, but her flashlight stayed steady. We need to get out, she whispered. Now. Suddenly a deafening crash shook the kitchen. Pots clattered, wood split. Then silence again. He's driving us toward the back, the officer muttered. Stay sharp. We reached the rear exit, a heavy door leading to the garden. The officer tried the handle. Locked. No, Daniel whispered. The officer rammed his shoulder into the door. It groaned but held firm. He kicked again. Nothing. And then from the other side of the door came 3 slow knocks. Top, top, top. The sound froze us all in place. Then his voice slithered through the wood. Elizabeth, do you really think Michael kept his secrets just for you? Open the door. Let me in. Let me show your son who his father truly was. My throat tightened. Daniel's eyes darted to mine, searching, desperate. Mom, what is he talking about? I couldn't answer. Not here. Not now. The officer motioned for us to move back. He raised his weapon, aiming for the lock. Before he fired, glass shattered above us as the kitchen window exploded inward. A shadowy figure dropped into the room with terrifying speed. The gunman. The officer spun, firing. Bullets cracked through the air, splinters flying. The shadow ducked and rolled, vanishing into the dark again. Move, the officer barked. We bolted into the living room. The box clutched tight against me. But the gunman's voice followed, low and guttural, rising from every shadow. You don't even know what you're holding, Elizabeth. That box doesn't just hold secrets. It holds blood. Michael's blood. My blood. Your son's future. Daniel stumbled, clutching my arm. What does he mean? Mom, what's in the box? I stopped, turning to him, my chest heaving. Not now, Daniel. Tell me. His voice cracked like thunder. Tell me the truth. Before I could speak, a figure lunged from the shadows, knocking me to the floor. The box slid across the carpet. The gunman towered above me, his face hidden behind a black mask, his pistol glinting in the pale beam of the officer's flashlight. Finally, he hissed. You've carried it long enough. He reached down, grabbing the box. Daniel roared, launching himself at the man with wild strength. They crashed against the wall, the gun clattering to the floor. The officer fired again, bullets tearing into the drywall. But the gunman twisted, using Daniel as a shield. Stop, he snarled. One more shot, and your boy dies. My world narrowed to the image of Daniel, his throat trapped in the crook of the man's arm, his eyes wide with terror. Please, I begged. Let him go. Take the box. Just let him go. The gunman's grip tightened. His voice dropped to a low growl. You still don't get it. This isn't about the box. This is about the truth. He shoved Daniel hard into the officer, then yanked the box open himself. Paper spilled across the floor, the notebook tumbling free. He snatched it up, flipping through the pages, his hands trembling. Yes, he muttered. It's here. Proof. All of it. Claire's flashlight illuminated his mask. For the first time, I saw his eyes bloodshot, burning, filled with both rage and unbearable sorrow. Who are you? I demanded, my voice breaking. He tore the mask off, and my world collapsed. The man standing before me wasn't a stranger. He was Michael's brother, David. The brother Michael had told me was dead 20 years ago. Daniel gasped. Claire covered her mouth. David's voice cracked with fury. You think he was a hero, Elizabeth? You think he died an honorable man? No. He was a traitor. And that notebook, this box proves it. I shook my head, tears blurring my vision. No. Michael was a good man. He loved us. David's eyes blazed. He left me to die, Elizabeth. He sold us out for his freedom. And now the whole world will know. The officer aimed his weapon. Put it down. But David ignored him, shoving the notebook into my chest. Read it, Elizabeth. Read what your husband really was. My fingers shook as I flipped through the pages. Words and names leapt at me, secret missions, betrayals, operations covered in blood. And then at the bottom of one page, scrawled in Michael's hand. If David survives, he will never forgive me. I chose family over country. He will call it treason. But I did it for Elizabeth. For Daniel. For love. The room spun. My heart cracked under the weight of the truth. David saw the page too, and his face twisted with rage and grief. Lies. He wrote it to justify his betrayal. The officer moved closer. Drop the weapon now. David whipped his head toward him, desperation pouring from his eyes. You don't understand. He betrayed us all. And she's protecting him even now. He raised the pistol. Dad. Daniel's voice was barely a whisper, breaking in half. David froze. His gun trembled. Daniel stepped forward slowly, his eyes locked on David's. If you loved him, if you loved me, you won't pull that trigger. The silence stretched, thick and suffocating. Then, with a guttural cry, David turned the gun toward himself. No. I screamed. The shot rang out. David crumpled to the floor, the pistol clattering away. His chest rose and fell weakly, blood seeping through his shirt. His hand reached out, trembling, grabbing mine. His eyes softened, pain mixing with regret. "He chose you," David whispered. "Always you." And then his hand went limp. The officers rushed in, checking for a pulse, securing the house. Claire held me as I sobbed, Daniel's arms wrapping around us both. The box lay open on the floor, its secrets scattered like broken glass. For the first time, I didn't feel relief. Only sorrow. Michael hadn't been the man I thought he was. But he hadn't been the monster David claimed either. He had been human, flawed, desperate, torn between loyalty and love. And his choices had left scars none of us would ever fully heal from. Weeks later, the dust settled. The papers were taken by the authorities. The box was gone. But the memories remained, etched into our souls. At Daniel's side, I found strength I never knew I had. He forgave me for keeping the secrets. I forgave Michael for the lies. And slowly, painfully, we began to heal. I learned something I will never forget. Secrets may protect you for a time, but they also build walls that collapse when truth finally breaks through. And when they do, the only thing left standing is love, or nothing at all. So when I look back on that night, on the wedding that began with joy and ended in chaos, I remember one lesson above all. The truth doesn't set you free, but facing it does. And I will never run from it again.